If you spend enough time around different businesses, you start to notice some patterns. And so I didn't come at this from the trades per se. Most of my background has been working with service businesses and manufacturing companies and helping leadership teams get aligned and run a better business using a simple system. And I came to that after running it in my company. But, honestly, I didn't even start there. I had a couple of businesses early on that didn't work, just magnificent failures. They didn't grow the way I thought they would. Everything felt harder than it should have been. Looking back, I just didn't understand what was missing, even though I had done all the classes I thought and gone to all the schools. But it wasn't really until I got into a marketing service business that I really started to finally figure out some of the things and began to see it more clearly. And then more recently, I started applying the same approach with my clients in the trades, and I kept seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And so, like different types of work, but the same types of problems and that same path to grow. And so what I've seen is that like most companies don't get stuck because of the market. They get stuck because something inside of the business is not built yet. And the easiest way I've found to think about that is this. So every service type of business runs on a handful of engines. And if you don't have those engines installed, or one of them is weak or underperforming, then the business just kind of tops out. And that's as far as it can go. It's not going to get any bigger. You're busy, you're working hard, but it doesn't really feel like it's moving forward. And so the way I break that down is into these six engines. So leads, sales, delivery, people, recurring work, and leadership. And the key is that you don't need all of them at once and at the same time, but they show up as you grow. And so most businesses don't fail because everything is broken. They struggle because the next thing that they need hasn't been built yet. So early on, when what I call right now, like the technician phase, this is usually up to about like $1 million, maybe 1.5 million in revenue. And this is where I spent early time and, my businesses, and I never got out of that phase. You're doing everything. You're finding the work, you're selling it, and you're doing it. And that is the whole business. And when you are here, like really early on, you've got to get really good at three things: leads, sales, and delivery. You've got to figure out how to get people to call you. However you do it, it just has to work consistently enough. Then you've got to be able to sell the work. That usually means you getting better at talking to customers, understanding their needs, understanding their problems, understanding what they really want, and being able to close. And then you've got to deliver really well. This is where your name gets built. You want people to say, those guys do great work. He does great work. She does great work. They're easy to deal with. We love working with them. Because if you do that part right, your work starts to bring you more work. And that's where referrals come from. And that starts to build you momentum. Then after that phase, you'll move to the next stage. Call it like 1.5 to maybe 5 million. From the outside, it looks like things are going really well. From the inside, it can feel like a total mess. You've got more people, you've got more jobs, you've got more problems. And this is where a lot of businesses get stuck next, because now the problem is people. Can you find them? Can you train them? Can you trust them to do the job without you checking everything, right? Because they have to become that high quality service provider that you were, but they're different from you, right? So you've got to get really good at building a team and putting a basic structure in place. And up until now, you were the system. Now you need to start building a system. And that's a shift or a change that, operators sometimes struggle to make. The process sounds simple, but we need processes, we need clear roles, and we've got to bring in people to help us run jobs or to manage those jobs or to manage people. And you start thinking about capacity, how much can we actually take on and still do it well? Because if you don't figure all of this out, you will get busier and more frustrated. Quality is going to drop. Communication is going to slip, and you'll end up right back in the middle of everything, and you'll be downshifting back into stage one. If you can master all those things and master that people, you can get to the next stage. And this is where things can feel a little more steady. In our service business, this is where we finally got something right. We made a decision early on that we weren't going to be the cheapest. We just knew that flat out. We were going to be the best to work with. And we tried to solve every problem that we could for the client in the spaces that we could solve those problems. We wanted everything. Even the stuff that sort of technically wasn't our job, but we had the capabilities to do it, we were going to go after it. And over time, that made us really hard to replace. We stayed so close to our clients and we kept building with them and helping them that we were embedded within their operations. And they just kept coming back. And looking back, what we were building is what I call recurring work. We didn't call it that. We had no name for it. We just knew that we were embedded. And when you're in this phase, that's what you need to get good at, staying connected to your customers and building this recurring work engine that's going to drive revenue into your business. You've got to find ways to keep that momentum and not starting from zero every time on finding a new client. This might be service agreements. It might be maintenance work. It might be repeat programs or subscriptions. Just staying in touch and being helpful. This shows up in every type of business. So you have to build it. Trades, service, manufacturing with spare parts. It's the same idea. When you get this right, the business will feel more steady. You're not chasing every job. You've got work coming in and coming back to you. And so then once you've mastered that at the recurring revenue, the last stage where the business can really run without you being in everything, usually 20 million and up. And this is where leadership becomes really the focus. Because if you're going to scale well beyond that, up to this point, the business has still been leaning on you pretty heavily. Now you need people who you can pass off parts of your business to, whether it's sales, whether it's operations, whether it's service, whether it's finance. So you can get really good at building a team. And you can see how this has changed, right? Now you need clear roles, clear ownership. Everyone knows what they're responsible for. You've built a culture that lives and breathes and really wants to have a thriving, successful business. And you've changed what you're actually building in the business. You have regular meetings, priority, you're tracking a few key numbers. It's nothing fancy, it's just consistent. But at this point, you're not doing the work anymore that you started out doing when you started off that company. And this is where a lot of owners can get stuck as well, because you got to change from what you were into a new identity. So if you can get to that point and it goes that far and you look across that, you'll see that you've built all of these engines. And service company, trade companies, manufacturing companies, there's a lot of commonality against all of them. But if you're going to come through these phases, you got to build the engines, you got to put them in place. And if one is sputtering or not really firing for you, you're going to be struggling in that phase of the build. So as we kind of tie this back and we tie this together, I want you to think about that. Think about those engines. Think about your own business. Think where you might be struggling. And when I talk to an owner, I try to keep it really simple. I just ask, like, where are you stuck? Right? So ask yourself, where am I stuck? And if you're honest about it, it's usually going to come back to some of them we just talked about, right? You know, is it the leads? Is it the sales? Is it the delivery? Is it the people, right? Is it leadership? Is it recurring revenue? Once you can see it and pinpoint it, you'll know what you need to really be working on in that phase to push your business forward. It's not easy, but it is usually pretty straightforward to diagnose it and know where you've got to attack. And that's when things can start to move again. Hopefully that helped. Leave a like, hit the subscribe button. I'll be back with more content in the future.